Welcome back to a sunny Donington Park, everybody, for the first race of the weekend in the Ginetta Junior Championship, our final Ginetta action of the day. And, well, perhaps we've saved the best till last. We've certainly had two entertaining Ginetta races so far today, but the juniors often like to take centre stage, especially when we stick them on at the end of the day. They've had all day to build up to this, get themselves ready to go, and they've got pretty much perfect conditions in which to race. It is warm, it is dry, the track temperature well into the 20s, so no cold tyre issues, hopefully, when we do go racing. And we've got a big grid of cars. There they are on the grid, lined up and ready to go for 20 minutes of racing. It's a championship that's being led by Charlie Hart, still winless so far this season, but those 5 second-place finishes from the first 6 races of the season mean that he's been Mr. Consistency, really. 14 points clear of his Elite Motorsport teammate, Isaac Phelps, who is twice a winner, but only 3 times has been on the podium. So a bit more consistency, perhaps, could see him move ahead of his teammate Charlie Hart. Ethan Jeff Hall, 3rd in the points. Henry Jocelyn, there on your screen, is 4th. He was a race winner last time out at Silverstone. And Chase Fernandez completing the top 5. Chase, another driver who you feel is overdue a win, really, a bit like Charlie Hart. Be interesting to see whether either of them can win this one. Well, Chase Fernandez has put himself in a perfect position, really, from which to try and claim that first victory of the season, because he's stuck his number 90 car on pole position. So Chase Fernandez starting at the front of the grid. Charlie Hart, the championship leader, starts directly behind him in 3rd place. So those two both looking for their first career, or first season victories anyway. In fact, no, first career victories, I think it would be, wouldn't it, in the Ginetta Juniors, are both starting towards the pointy end. Here is the grid in full then. Chase Fernandez on pole position, with Henry Jocelyn for Prep Tech UK alongside him. Charlie Hart makes it 3 different teams represented in the top 3. His Elite Motorsport car starts 3rd, ahead of our Racing's Marcus Sater. Ethan Jeff Hall and Archie Clark are together on row number 3. Row 4 for James Shotton and Alfie Davis. Top 10 on the grid completed by Jude Peters and Fox Motorsport's Colin Cronin. Ruben Dan and Felix Livesey are together on row number 6. Row 7 then for Harry Moss and Alfie Slater. Harry was actually slowest in qualifying, but loads of the drivers had lap times disallowed, so he's moved up to 13th on the grid, and therefore everyone else on the grid affected by track limits. Ollie Mile 15th, James Ellis in 16th position, 17th Giovanni Cassell-Joseph, Isaac Phelps 18th on the grid on row 9, Tom Ingram Hill and Nickolas Ellis share the 10th row of the grid, and then Torin Burr and Max Cuthbert on row 11. Row 12, meanwhile, at the back of the grid. Oh, we don't have a row 12. We should have Ethan Carney and Jack Robinson on row number 12, making it a 24-car entry. So, Chase Fernandez on pole position. Now, the big news for Chase is that he has this change of team this weekend. He's moved from E3 Sport over to R Racing, so a new livery on Chase Fernandez's car. That move seems to be yielding results already, doesn't it? Fastest in qualifying earlier on, and looking to try and really buy into this championship battle now is Chase. His 2nd season of racing in Ginetta Juniors. He is 5th in the points. He's still winless, but only 33 points off the top of the points table, and so he should be a contender, I reckon, by the time we get to Brands Hatch and the championship finale at the end of the year. Unlike the other 2 Ginetta categories, it's a standing start for the juniors, so they will line up on a staggered grid, 2x2. 1x1 staggered grid, I suppose, on the Donington Park pit straight, Wheatcroft straight, and then what a brilliant sight that makes. So nice to see the Ginetta Junior Championship continuing to be really strong, really well supported. We know it produces good racing, but it's produced some fantastic talent over the years as well. And this year's grid, I'm sure, no exception. So green flag waved at the back of the grid, then 20 minutes on the clock. The red lights on the starting gantry will illuminate momentarily, and when they go out, we are racing for the first of 3 times this weekend at Donington. The lights go out now, away they go, and Chase Fernandez makes a good launch from pole position by the looks of it. Usually you get pretty even starts in juniors, and look at that, seamlessly they all move over to the inside of the track, but Charlie Hart, the first to break ranks, tries to get to the outside of Henry Jocelyn, then tries to duck back to the inside, but ultimately they're all going to go through red gate, I think, pretty much in grid order. I'm sure this is not your first time watching the Ginetta Junior Championship. If it is, don't be fooled into thinking that they're going to stay single file for the duration of the race. These races get more and more entertaining as you get further into them. The first lap often is the quietest lap of the race as everyone sort of settles in, and then that slipstream starts to take effect. and you always get some good racing. There was an overtake there further back down at the old hairpin. We've got quite a few quick drivers digging their way through from the back of the grid, the likes of Tom Hill in particular springing to mind, having had all his lap times disallowed in qualifying earlier on. So we should see a bit of shuffling from those further back, looking to try and dig themselves out of that hole. Chase Fernandez, though, set himself up perfectly, didn't he, with that pole position. He leads them as they head through Coppice. The top four just starting to break away slightly. Ethan Jeff Hall there defending his 5th position, and that's just delaying everyone else behind. There goes the number 5 of Tom Hill, one of the silver racing cars with the yellowy-green highlights, on board with James Shotton, meanwhile, and we're in this battle that's headed by Ethan Jeff Hall. Side by side, in fact, in front of them they were going. Ethan Jeff Hall just fending off the number 43 of Archie Clark. The tyre stack nearly getting a wallop there from some of those further back, but already at the front of the field, battle is joined. Defensive stuff there from Chase Fernandez down at the Melbourne hairpin as they take 6 or 7 different racing lines into the corner. Are they all going to come out in the same order? That's Davis out wide, 2 wheels on the dirt, and digs his way back out onto the track. Alfie Slater's view is a fairly congested one, isn't it, really? Cars going 2 and nearly 3 abreast in front of him. Bit of a squeeze to the inside line. Jude Peters there at the inside of Colin Cronin, who gets a brilliant switchback right up the curb, but can't quite get back ahead of Jude Peters. And the E3 Sport car stays in front. There's a spinner further back. Around has gone the number 18 car. That is Torrin Byrne. Torrin Byrne will rejoin. Whether Torrin jumped or was pushed, I should say, I'm not so sure. But anyway, that car rejoins, albeit some way detached from the rest of the field. A field that is headed still by Chase Fernandez, with Henry Jocelyn 2nd, 3rd position Hart, 4th Sater. The top 10 all still in grid order, but for how much longer? Because Charlie Hart goes defensive into the old hairpin. That will lose him momentum on corner exit, and with the power of the slipstream and a long uphill drag towards McLean's, these two could be side by side by the time they reach the next corner. Jocelyn definitely closing in the slipstream, but the inside line you would imagine will be defended. Now, I've seen plenty Ginetta Junior drivers go around the outside of McLean's. Actually, Henry Jocelyn tried to get to the inside. Charlie Hart very sideways over the curb, and this is stacking them all together. Watch for Marcus Sater in 4th position, goes to the outside of all of them and tries to pick up at least one place, but Henry Jocelyn round the outside of Coppice corner should have the momentum down the back straight. They're banging door handles, banging wing mirrors, and off goes Jocelyn. They lent on each other once too many times, and Henry Jocelyn shedding his rear bumper, bounces back on the road in 3rd-ish, but absolutely surrounded by our racing cars and the Elite Motorsport machine of Charlie Hart. It is Fernandez that leads then, Hart 2nd, Jocelyn down to 4th as a result of that. Suddenly Ethan Jeff Hall is a part of this battle again, having really detached himself from the group he was battling with earlier on. But Fernandez leads, Hart is back in 2nd place again, and it is then Sater, Marcus Sater in 3rd place. Off, I think, at the chicane has gone number 23, that's Holly Mile. Is Holly on her own? I think she is. Harmless spin, hopefully, over onto the grass on the right-hand side of the road. But I told you things would get more exciting as the laps went down. We're only 2 laps in, and already it's all kicking off. But Chase Fernandez managing to hold on to the lead. So Chase Fernandez then staying out in front, but Charlie Hart into 2nd place, the position in which he's finished 5 times already so far this season. Ethan Jeff Hall there launching up the inside of Henry Jocelyn. That was a late move. A really nice dummy that he sold, though. Got to the inside, Jocelyn out wide, skitters over the gravel, and now James Shotton gets up the inside, his Fox Motorsport teammate. It is all unravelling for Jocelyn, who just can't catch a break. Even his teammate won't leave him any space, and through, I suspect, is going to go James Shotton. He's got the outside for the crane of curves, but that's the inside for the old hairpin. And actually, no, Henry Jocelyn, having none of it, sails off into the corner, and his new lightweight Ginetta G40 does manage to stay in front of his teammate. Now it's the turn of Elite Motorsport's Archie Clark to pull up alongside Shotton. Actually drives clear past him by the time they arrive up at McLean's corner. Good example there of how momentum-based these cars are. It's all about carrying the speed through the corners and off the corners, crucially, onto the next flat-out section, of which there are plenty here at Donington. And sometimes, if you go to the inside of somebody, it loses you enough momentum that you end up losing a place. Definitely losing a place there was that Jeff Hall? I think it might have been. Yes, it was Ethan Jeff Hall, who ran 2 wheels into the dirt coming off Coppice corner and drops right to the back of that group. So Ethan Jeff Hall dropping down from 5th, where he was at the start of the lap, back to 7th. But actually, he was 4th, wasn't he, at the time of that moment. The chicane they go then, hammering the curbs, avoiding the tyre stacks. There is Tom Hill. Tom Hill not making a huge amount of progress, actually, like I expected him to do. Down at the hairpin. Clark ahead of Shotton, ahead of the recovering Ethan Jeff Hall. We're on board with James Shotton, who's provided us with some pretty good onboard footage so far this season, continuing to find himself in the thick of the battle, but actually under attack now from Ethan Jeff Hall, who goes to the inside at Goddard's. That was a pretty textbook outbraking manoeuvre, wasn't it, really? Went to the inside line where nobody else was, which meant that he could brake as late as he dared, whereas Shotton was sort of boxed in behind Archie Clark and had to brake when Archie braked. And that meant that he couldn't quite fend off Ethan Jeff Hall, who does now slide back through into 6th position then. There is the 27 car, that is Slater. So Alfie Slater started 14th. He is up into 11th position at the moment, right on board with Alfie now. Alfie Slater rides down the hill. Alfie didn't race with us, I believe, at Alton Park, made his debut at Silverstone. Inside the points again here as for 2nd position. Marcus Sater trying to find a way past Charlie Hart. They're side by side off the old hairpin, but Charlie's going to have the inside line for McLean's. As I've said before, though, in the Ginetta Juniors in particular, you can tough it out round the outside, sort of pinch the other car onto the inside line and make the move stick, but Marcus Sater not quite able to do that. It's easier to do when you're in a line of cars, really, and they all sort of stack up on the inside and you can just go sailing around the outside, but Marcus Sater not able to do it and settles in line behind. But what this is allowing is Chase Fernandez to pull away. This could turn into a very un-Ginetta Junior-like race in that the race leader is pulling away early on, setting fastest laps, the two behind battling, and Chase Fernandez might have a pretty easy run to the flag. Board again with James Shotton. Where do we go? We've got an R-Racing car in front of us. That will be Ethan Jeff Hall. We're following him through, so places being gained down into the Fogarty S's. James, though, feeling the need to go defensive because, yeah, that's Archie Clark trying to come back at him now and forces the defensive move out of car number 17. Into the Melbourne hairpin they go. Behind is Isaac Phelps. Isaac Phelps, remember, twice a winner so far this season. He won 2 races at Alton Park and will argue that he should have won one at Silverstone as well, but had a late collision with Marcus Sater whilst battling for the race lead and ended up spinning. So the black and white number 35 car of Isaac Phelps, only 8th place at the moment. Black and white warning flags already going out for cars 34 and 17. They are Cuthbert, and 17 is James Shotton, isn't it? So warnings for track limits for those two. James Shotton most notably, and won't be very happy if he starts being handed penalties. But that will happen if he exceeds track limits once again. Down the hill comes the battle for 2nd place there. This is where Sater made his move a lap ago. He's going to try it again. Goes to the inside of Charlie Hart. Charlie will try and do what he did a lap ago and get the switch back on the exit. But actually, Sater learnt from what happened a lap ago, parked the car on the apex and prevented that switchback from happening. So Marcus Sater through into 2nd position. The trouble is they've lost so much time now to Chase Fernandez. He's 1.6 seconds up the road and will continue to gap them as long as they start going side by side again. Charlie Hart forces Sater to defend into McLean's, gets the switchback up the inside into Coppice corner. There's a squeeze. You've got Henry Jocelyn trying to join in the fun as well, and Jocelyn's going to have by far the better run off the corner. They're going to be 3 abreast off Coppice. Sater's not going to back down on the outside. He just has to give way in the end as Charlie Hart slides in front of him. He's now giving the bumper to Charlie Hart, but that will not prevent Henry Jocelyn from going through. Jocelyn absolutely judged that to perfection, goes from 4th to 2nd, read the situation beautifully and moves up 2 positions as a result. But these 3 really need, and I know I'm wasting my breath by saying this, but they really need to work together because they are handing this race on a platter to Chase Fernandez, who has disappeared up the road. And look, the next group of cars are now starting to close in as well. So Jocelyn goes 2nd. Can he break clear? Doubtful, really, because these cars are very evenly matched. That slipstream notorious for keeping them all bunched together. Once you do escape, it's very difficult for the rest of them to catch you. Charlie Hart now defending again from Marcus Sater there into the Goddard's hairpin. Ooh, and way out wide goes Archie Clark. That was courtesy of James Shotton showing him the edge of the road, and now Isaac Phelps is joining in the fun as well. So Isaac Phelps is the 3rd of the elite motorsport cars in this race, and he's about to overtake one of his teammates into Redgate corner. Does clear Archie before they turn into the corner. Charlie Hart there defending from Sater. The lead gap then, 3.5 seconds, nearly 3.6 seconds actually. And it's not like Fernandez is setting purple sectors. In actual fact, Marcus Sater on the previous lap set the quickest 1st sector, and Ethan Jeff Hall the quickest 3rd sector, but they're nowhere near the race leader because they're all busy squabbling. They might go quickly in one sector, but then they lose a chunk of time in the next one. And it allows Chase Fernandez to keep building that cushion. Up the hill we go. To my point earlier on, though, that is why working together is beneficial, because they're going quicker than him in certain parts of the lap, even when they're battling. Can you imagine if they all just agreed for 3 laps to stay in line? They would take seconds out of the race leader then, because 4 cars circulating together are, in theory, quicker than 1, all because of the effect of the slipstream. There's another rear bumper in the gravel trap there. Marshall's have been out and gathered up Henry Jocelyn's, but there's another car that's shed its rear bodywork somewhere earlier on in the corner. While here comes Isaac Phelps having a bit of an under-the-radar race so far. Isaac was the first of the drivers to have had all of his lap times disallowed. He started 18th on the grid, so it's been a good run this to 7th place. He's about to turn that into 6th place, I think, up the inside into the Melbourne hairpin, and will clear James Shotton nicely. So Isaac Phelps on the charge. So perhaps I was a bit unfair to him earlier on when I said he's further down the order than he should be. That is because of his his grid position. And look at that, that was an interesting moment. The thumbs up there from James Shotton was in response to a hand signal from Isaac Phelps to say, work with me, don't battle with me, let's work together and catch the next group. But then interestingly, even after getting the thumbs up from Shotton, Isaac still defended into the final corner, so not working together particularly effectively, are they? Neither are the R-Racing teammates here of Ethan Jeff Hall and Marcus Sater, but Jeff Hall goes around the outside at Redgate, makes that move pretty cleanly actually. The next 2 in front of them are now just starting to pull away. There you can see those next 2, Jocelyn and Hart, who I think are starting to work together, aren't they? My word, they're listening for once, because they've just gone on the previous lap only fractionally quicker than the leader, but in the second half of the lap, they took about 2/10 out of Chase Fernandez. So the gap, you can see that live gap updating sector by sector on the left-hand side of your screen, down to 3.5. Let's see if these 2 continue to work together. Can they catch Chase Fernandez? We still have 7.5 minutes of the 20 to go. It is doable. Once they get within a second of Fernandez, if they get within a second, then they will start to pick up the slipstream themselves. In the first sector of this lap, they've got about 2/10 quicker than the leader. The middle sector ends halfway down this next straight, so we'll see how much more time they've managed to gain, if any. 3.5 seconds becomes what? Let's see. Fernandez goes through, Jocelyn will break the beam, and the gap is 3.3, another 2/10 gained, and look at that, the race leader Chase Fernandez really having to push now, digging a hole on the inside of the chicane, a couple of them clipping that tyre stack actually. That is, I think, the most spectacular camera shot around the Donington Park Grand Prix circuit, and if you come here to spectate, you can sit just behind that exact spot. It's a brilliant view and a real hot spot for action here at Donington. Now, our first track limits time penalty has come in. To be fair, that took about 15 minutes longer than I thought it would. It's number 28 getting a 5-second penalty, and that is Harry Moss. So Harry Moss, who wasn't in the best of moods after having all of his lap times, or actually didn't have his lap times disallowed in qualifying, but he didn't do his 3rd flying lap. All of the junior drivers are limited to 3 flying laps in their qualifying session. He only did 2 because of a miscommunication over a red flag, so he wasn't very happy after qualifying, and he won't be any happier now that he's picked up a 5-second penalty either. Lead gap down to 3.1 seconds, by the way. So on that previous lap, they took half a second out of the leader. This was the number 28 car through the chicane, hammering the curbs. This is Harry Moss, who's been pinged for exceeding track limits. And yeah, I'd say that's exceeding track limits. That's definitely not within the white lines, is it, for Harry Moss, who has had an adventure through the beach down at the chicane and bounces his way back onto the track, but not making friends with the stewards today. So 3.1 seconds then the lead margin, but it was the fastest lap of the race for Charlie Hart last time around. A 55.67 compared to a 56.16 for Chase Fernandez, the race leader. So at this rate, they are catching, but will they catch in time to do anything with him on the final lap? Like I said, if you get within a second, then you start to pick up a slipstream, and that last second tends to disappear quite quickly. So really, if they can gain another 2 seconds, then they might be within striking range. Are we under 3 seconds? No, not quite. They're not really gaining on this lap, are they? In fairness, Chase Fernandez driving brilliantly well here to respond to this incoming threat. Chase Fernandez makes his way down the hill then. Again, 3 different teams represented at the front of the field. They are not his teammates chasing him down. He does have 2 teammates in Ethan Jeff Hall and Marcus Sater, but they're dropping away from these 2 now. This is a significant lap, I feel, in the context of this race, because I don't think Chase Fernandez has lost an awful lot of time this time around. And that might just mean that with 4.5 minutes to go, he's pretty much safe now. And maybe, just maybe, that first victory of the season might well be coming his way. Wait and see then. Down to the bottom of the hill at Redgate we go. It's just underneath 3 seconds. 2.97 is only just underneath. But at least they're inching closer and closer, aren't they? Further back, some good battles going on. This is the number 11 of Ruben Dan, side by side with the penalised Harry Moss. So remember, Harry does have a penalty to be added at the end of the race. So it's not really a genuine battle necessarily, that, but they are pretty close together anyway. Chase Fernandez, I'm just reminding myself, yes, he did win 4 races last year. He won't thank me for forgetting about that. His first one came at Silverstone at the Ginetta G-Fest. He won another one at Silverstone actually later that weekend. Then managed to net himself another one at Cadwell Park at the second Ginetta G-Fest, as way wide goes Henry Joslin. And then actually Chase Fernandez's most recent win came in the final round of the championship in 2023, right here at Donington Park. So Chase Fernandez is actually going to take back-to-back Donington Park wins with this one, if he can bring it home. If being the operative word, though, because there is a real chance still that these two could catch, although they're just not taking chunks out of him, are they? It's a couple of tenths here and there. Gap down to 2.8 seconds now as Charlie Hart fires it over the curbs, sliding around behind Henry Joslin. And at what point does Charlie give up the chase here and think, right, we're not going to catch Chase anyway? Pardon the pun. And I might as well just have a go at getting past Henry. I suspect that will wait until the last lap, though, because actually what Charlie doesn't want to do is start battling with Joslin and then bring Ethan Jeff Hall and Marcus Sater back into the fight. Speaking of fight, further back, Isaac Phelps up to 6th position now, ahead of James Shott and Archie Clark, but I suspect that's as good as things will get for Isaac, coming through from basically the back of the grid. Number 45 now being given a 5-second penalty as well. 45 is... who? Oh, that's Robinson, and also Cassell Joseph as well, down in 24th and last place, being penalised too. So a few drivers in the bottom half of the order being given time penalties, but actually the leaders so far, touch wood, being pretty well behaved with track limits. Even though they're chasing down the race leader, 2.6 seconds now the gap. This is James Shotton, meanwhile, at the inside of Isaac Phelps. So I said that 6th was the best it would get for Isaac Phelps. It might not be 6th, actually, because James Shotton, I think, has cleared him before they even get to the old hairpin. So James Shotton up a position, Isaac Phelps down a position, and Archie Clark will now try and take advantage of that to gain a place as well. Second-placed pair come towards McLean's. I'm not yet calling it a battle. Maybe I should be, because Charlie Hart is up the inside, and, well, he didn't wait till the last lap. He's decided that with a lap and a half to go, now is the time to attack. I'm not convinced I agree with him, though, because actually that move on the inside of McLean's is a difficult one to make, and Henry Joslin manages to fend him off. Car 53 now being warned about track limits as well, but again, that is Ethan Carney further down the order. Doesn't affect the leading group, who make their way down towards the Fogarty S's for the 10th time of asking, the penultimate time of asking. Joslin just covering the middle of the road there. Oh, hits the curb a bit too hard. This is Charlie Hart's opportunity. He's going to get the run off the chicane, but look, Joslin just got over to the inside line in time to cover. So Charlie Hart has to go to the outside. He won't try and go right round the outside here. Instead, try and focus on getting a good exit speed and maybe challenge up at the top of the hill into Goddard's. Marcus Sater there has fallen behind Ethan Jeff Hall for 4th, and Archie Clark has gone past both James Shotton and Isaac Phelps down at the Melbourne hairpin. That was a real banzai move, and Clark gaining 2 positions. Shotton and Phelps now left to do battle behind him as they arrive up at Goddard. Bit of a lock-up there for Clark. Phelps clatters into the side of James Shotton. Flashbacks to Silverstone after that side-to-side contact he had whilst debating the race lead. This is only for 7th position, but he wants it nonetheless. Needs all the points that he can get. Down through towards Redgate they go. Does anybody duck out of the slipstream to try and pass? Not on this occasion. They stay as they were. The leaders, though, have gone through to start the final lap. 2.8 seconds is the margin out in front, so Chase Fernandez just needs to bring this one home mistake-free now. The question is, who will join him on the podium and in which order? Henry Joslin has 2nd place. Charlie Hart very much keen on taking it away from him. Then come the R-Racing teammates. Then comes this mess down through the old hairpin. Archie Clark, James Shott and Isaac Phelps all still together. And still for now in that order, but James Shotton's stuck in the middle here. He wants to attack, but he's also got to not leave the door open for Isaac Phelps behind him. Charlie Hart, meanwhile, climbing up the curb through McLean's in his efforts to relieve Henry Joslin of 2nd position. Through Coppice Corner they go. We can see what happens down at the chicane, and I feel really down into the Melbourne hairpin. That's going to be the key part of this final lap. This has been quite a battle between these three, hasn't it? Isaac Phelps has got a run here. Is there a gap to the right of James Shotton? I think there might have been. Yes, there was. There is Isaac, but that's the outside into the chicane, and of course, they're all going to concertina together in the slipstream. This could get very interesting indeed as they head for the Fogarty S's for the final time. I think James Shotton's going to hang on, but Isaac Phelps might get the better exit from the chicane. No, pretty even in the end. Right, what's going on for second place then? Down at the Melbourne hairpin they head. Fernandez leads. This is for second, and Charlie Hart's forced a bit of a mistake out of Jocelyn. Jocelyn may have defended into Melbourne, runs wide on the exit, and so Charlie Hart now has one more opportunity to try and get this second place away. You can see where they've made contact already with their wing mirrors folded in, but Henry Jocelyn, I think, is going to hang on as survives a gravelly moment early in the race to claim second place, but it's a first victory of the season for Chase Fernandez in the Ginetta Junior Championship and his second consecutive win here on the Donington Park Grand Prix track. Henry Jocelyn second, Charlie Hart third, and Ethan Jeff Hall gets the better of his teammate Marcus Sater in the battle for fourth position. Clark was ahead of Shotton and Phelps in the end in their battle for what was that, sixth position. Oh, it's all going on further back as well. Tom Ingram Hill is a part of this scrap. He's got the number 31 of Felix Livesey just ahead, but more pertinently, he's got the number 53 of Ethan Carney behind him. Carney was being warned about track limits, but I haven't seen a penalty arrive on the screen for him yet, so he should get to keep 18th position. Quite a few cars, though, showing a few battle scars after that race, aren't there? There's a bit of work to be done in the Ginetta Junior end of the paddock overnight, ahead of their two further races to come tomorrow. But Chase Fernandez, that is exactly what he needed. Chase Fernandez with a first victory of the season. But more to the point, that closes things up in the championship. He beats Charlie Hart by a couple of positions, and of course Charlie Hart, the championship leader. So there is a good chance, I think, that Chase Fernandez, if he keeps this up over the rest of the weekend, could be close to the championship lead as we head to the Anglesey Ginetta Festival in a few weeks' time. Two more races to go this weekend. We'll not get too carried away. We're not even halfway through the season yet. And it is going to be a fascinating second half of the year. So Chase Fernandez then celebrates, and not a bad decision, was it, to move over to R Racing for this weekend and presumably the rest of the season. He is victorious here at Donington Park. Henry Jocelyn second, 2.3 seconds the winning margin, and it's not like that suddenly appeared on the last lap either. Chase just dominated that race. Jocelyn second, Charlie Hart back on the podium again in third. Good points scored for the championship for him, whilst the top rookie was Ethan Jeff Hall in fourth position. And then a whole host of rookies behind: Marcus Sater, Archie Clark, James Shotton, Isaac Phelps, Alfie Slater and Alfie Davis completing the top 10, ahead of Jude Peters, Nickolas Ellis, Colin Cronin and Ruben Dan, with Harry Moss, Felix Livesey, Tom Ingram Hill, Ethan Carney, Torrin Byrne and Max Cuthbert completing the top 20. There were 24 starters, and I'm pretty sure all 24 made it to the flag in the end as well. Robinson, Ellis, Mile and Cassell Joseph at the back. But it was another entertaining instalment of the Ginetta Junior Championship that saw Chase Fernandez lead every lap from pole position and claim the victory. But don't be fooled into thinking that it was an uneventful race. It was a relatively uneventful race for Chase, in fairness. He led them cleanly through Redgate Corner, had a bit of early pressure, but after a couple of laps started to assert his dominance. It was the usual midfield action, further emphasised by the fact there were a few quick drivers who had lap times disallowed in qualifying, trying to make their way through the order. That was the scariest moment of the race for Chase Fernandez. A bit of contact with Henry Jocelyn. Henry tried that outside line through Coppice Corner, and this perhaps will be one of the talking points post-race. There was a bit of a touch between the two of them. They leant on each other, and Jocelyn ended up in the gravel trap. He did, though, recover to finish second. There's the answer as to what happened to Holly Miles. She did not get there by herself. There was contact with another car coming off the chicane, whilst Marcus Sater made an ambitious move up the inside of Charlie Hart into the old hairpin. Sater looked like the man on the move mid-race, but Charlie eventually got back past him up at Coppice Corner, and in doing so opened the door for Henry Jocelyn to make a really well-read overtake, a well-anticipated move to drag past the pair of them down the next straight. Those two then tried to work together to catch the leader. That wasn't happening, but it did at least mean they were free to settle the fight for second place between themselves in the closing stages. But it it was a first victory of the season in the end for Chase Fernandez, who's fast becoming a bit of a Donington Park specialist, his second consecutive win on the Grand Prix circuit to fire himself properly into championship contention. 2 more races still to come this weekend, 2 more opportunities to score some good points, and Chase Fernandez looking to try and further close in on the front runners in the championship.